The United States Air Force own the sky. Here is how. Imagine an Air Force so dominant that it could, if necessary, take on the next 7 largest air forces in the world simultaneously and still have a reasonable chance of winning. That's not a Hollywood fantasy. That's the United States Air Force. Look up. That quiet sky above you? It's not empty. It's monitored, mapped, defended, and, if necessary, dominated by the most powerful Air Force ever built. And today, we're breaking down exactly how they became the most powerful aerial force ever assembled in human history. The United States Air Force doesn't just own the sky, they've redefined what air superiority even means. The United States Air Force exists for one overriding purpose: to control the sky so nothing else can threaten what happens below it. That idea sounds simple, almost obvious, but solving it at a global scale is one of the hardest military challenges in human history. The Air Force doesn't just fly planes, it shapes wars, deters conflicts, stabilizes alliances, and quietly enforces global order, often without firing a single shot. Start with scale, because scale still matters. With over 5,000 aircraft in their inventory, including more than 2,000 fighters and attack aircraft, the U.S. Air Force operates more advanced combat jets than most countries have total military aircraft. That includes fighters, bombers, refueling tankers, surveillance platforms, cargo aircraft, drones, and experimental systems the public doesn't even know exist yet. No other air force on Earth comes close. Many countries struggle to maintain a few hundred aircraft. The United States Air Force sustains thousands worldwide every single day. But raw numbers only tell part of the story. What truly sets the Air Force apart is their unmatched combination of technological supremacy, operational experience, and global reach. They're the only Air Force on Earth that can project overwhelming power anywhere on the planet within hours, not days, not weeks, hours. Modern American air power is not built around individual jets, it's built around systems. Fighters rely on tankers to stay airborne. Bombers rely on intelligence aircraft to select targets. Surveillance planes feed real-time data to command centers thousands of miles away. Satellites guide navigation and timing. Cyber units protect the networks tying it all together. Remove one piece and the rest keep functioning. If this is already changing how you see air power, you'll want to stay to the end. Air superiority today is less about dogfights and more about information. This is where fifth-generation aircraft redefine warfare. Every modern Air Force aircraft is a flying sensor. Radar, infrared, electronic signals, communications, everything is collected, fused, and shared across networks in real time. Pilots don't just see what's in front of them, they see the entire battle space as a living map. Consider this staggering reality. The United States Air Force operates more 4th and 5th generation fighter aircraft than the rest of the world combined. We are talking about the F-22 Raptor, the most advanced air superiority fighter ever built, with capabilities so far ahead of competing aircraft that it maintains a kill ratio in combat exercises that would seem absurd if it wasn't documented. In simulated combat, a single F-22 can achieve kill ratios exceeding 100 to 1 against 4th-generation fighters. Stealth, speed, maneuverability, and sensor fusion give it dominance before enemies even know it's there. Then there's the F-35 Lightning II, the most expensive weapons program in human history, with a price tag exceeding $1.7 trillion over its lifetime. But here's why that investment matters. The F-35 isn't just a fighter jet, it's a flying supercomputer with stealth capabilities, advanced sensors that can detect threats hundreds of miles away, and data fusion technology that creates a complete picture of the battlefield in real time. Each F-35 essentially becomes a node in a vast information network, sharing targeting data with every other friendly asset in the area. The Air Force currently operates over 300 F-35s, with plans to acquire more than 1,700 total. For perspective, that's more 5th-generation fighters than every other country's 5th-generation programs combined, including Russia's Su-57 and China's J-20, which exist in tiny numbers comparatively. And those numbers matter because air superiority compounds. The more nodes in the network, the clearer the picture becomes. But air superiority fighters are just the beginning. The U.S. Air Force operates the world's most sophisticated bomber fleet, including the B-2 Spirit, a stealth bomber so advanced it can penetrate the most heavily defended airspace on Earth undetected. Each B-2 can carry 16 GPS-guided 2,000-pound bombs or 80 500-pound precision munitions. Only 21 of these aircraft exist, and they've never lost a single plane to enemy action. Now the Air Force is introducing the B-21 Raider, an even more advanced stealth bomber designed to ensure American air dominance through the 21st century. This aircraft incorporates technology so classified that most of its capabilities remain unknown even to defense analysts. Designed for future battlefields, it incorporates classified technologies meant to keep the Air Force dominant for decades. Its full capabilities remain deliberately unknown, which is exactly the point. Uncertainty itself becomes deterrence. Together, these aircraft ensure one thing: distance no longer protects adversaries. Geography has stopped being a shield. To understand how the United States Air Force became this dominant, we need to rewind the clock to a time when air power was still an experiment. Early military aircraft were fragile, slow, and unreliable. Many leaders viewed them as scouts, nothing more. But visionaries saw something else: a new dimension of warfare that could bypass borders, terrain, and defenses. World War II proved them right. American aircrews flew millions of sorties, dropped millions of tons of bombs, and gained operational experience on a scale that has never been repeated. By the war's end, air power was no longer optional, it was decisive. The Air Force as an independent service branch is actually relatively young. It was officially established on September 18, 1947, splitting off from the Army Air Forces after World War II demonstrated that air power had become a decisive element of modern warfare. But that's where things get interesting. The institutional culture that emerged from World War II shaped everything the Air Force would become. American pilots and air crews gained combat experience on a scale that simply hasn't been repeated since. During the war, the Army Air Forces flew over 2.3 million sorties and dropped over 2 million tons of bombs. That operational tempo created a generation of aviators and strategists who understood air warfare at a level no peacetime force could replicate. After the war ended, something remarkable happened. While other nations dramatically scaled back their air forces, the United States made a strategic decision to maintain aerial supremacy as a core national security priority. The emerging Cold War with the Soviet Union meant that America needed to maintain technological and operational advantages in every domain, and the air became a critical battleground. This led to the most sustained period of aerospace innovation in human history. Instead of shrinking after the war, the United States doubled down. While other nations demobilized, America invested. Supersonic flight, aerial refueling, radar networks, intercontinental missiles. The Air Force became shield and sword. The 1950s and 60s saw the development of supersonic fighters, strategic bombers, aerial refueling capabilities, and intercontinental ballistic missiles. Nuclear weapons transformed deterrence, and aircraft became the backbone of strategic stability. Bombers stayed on alert, tankers extended global reach, early warning systems scanned the skies constantly. The Air Force became the custodian of America's nuclear deterrent, operating bombers and missiles that could deliver devastating retaliation against any potential adversary. Throughout the Cold War, the Air Force maintained what strategists called escalation dominance. This meant having capabilities so advanced that any potential enemy would think twice before challenging American interests. It wasn't just about having more planes, it was about having better planes, better pilots, better training, and better support infrastructure. The Vietnam War, despite its controversial outcome, provided another crucible for American air power. The Air Force learned hard lessons about the importance of air superiority, electronic warfare, and precision strike capabilities. These lessons drove the development of F-15 Eagle, which was designed with one purpose: to dominate enemy fighters in air-to-air combat. The F-15's combat record speaks for itself. In the hands of American and Allied pilots, it has achieved over 100 air-to-air victories with 0 losses in dogfights. The Gulf War in 1991 showcased what the Air Force had become. Operation Desert Storm showed the world what modern air power looked like. The war began in the air, with an air campaign so overwhelming that Iraq's Air Force was effectively destroyed in the opening days. Coalition forces, led by the U.S. Air Force, flew over 100,000 sorties and achieved total air supremacy. Stealth fighters struck command centers, bombers destroyed infrastructure. Iraqi forces were blinded, isolated, and dismantled before ground troops advanced. Air superiority wasn't supporting the war, it was the war. Iraqi ground forces were subjected to precision bombing campaigns that destroyed their command and control infrastructure before ground forces even crossed the border. This conflict introduced the world to concepts like shock and awe, and demonstrated the value of stealth technology. F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighters flew into the heart of Baghdad's air defenses and struck targets with impunity. It was a display of technological superiority that fundamentally changed how nations thought about air power. From that moment on, global militaries understood something fundamental had changed. Control the sky, and everything else follows. But technology alone doesn't make an Air Force dominant. What truly sets the U.S. Air Force apart is its comprehensive approach to air warfare that encompasses training, logistics, intelligence, and global infrastructure. Subscribe if you want complex global power explained without the fluff. Let's talk about training. The United States Air Force operates the most sophisticated pilot training pipeline in the world. Every fighter pilot goes through hundreds of hours of training before they ever sit in a combat aircraft. But it doesn't stop there. The Air Force runs advanced training programs like Red Flag, massive combat exercises held at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada that simulate real-world combat scenarios against trained adversary squadrons flying tactics used by potential enemies. Pilots experience their first combat before ever seeing the real thing. These exercises aren't just practice flights, they're incredibly realistic simulations where pilots face surface-to-air missiles, enemy fighters, electronic jamming, and complex mission objectives. The idea is simple but powerful. Train like you fight. By the time an Air Force pilot encounters real combat, they've already experienced similar scenarios dozens of times in training. The pilot quality extends beyond just flying skills. Experience compounds advantage. U.S. Air Force pilots typically have more actual flight hours than their counterparts in other air forces. This matters enormously. Flying a modern fighter jet is phenomenally complex, and experience translates directly into combat effectiveness. When you combine superior training with superior aircraft, you create a multiplicative advantage. Now let's discuss something that often gets overlooked: logistics and sustainability. Logistics form the invisible backbone. The Air Force operates a global network of bases, refueling capabilities, and supply chains that allow them to sustain operations anywhere on Earth indefinitely. They run the largest aerial refueling fleet in the world, with over 400 tanker aircraft. These tankers allow fighters and bombers to reach any target globally without requiring forward bases in friendly countries. Bombers can launch from the United States, strike targets anywhere on Earth, and return home without landing abroad. Few nations can even attempt that. This aerial refueling capability fundamentally changes the strategic equation. A B-2 bomber can take off from Missouri, fly to anywhere in the world, strike its targets, and return home without ever landing in a foreign country. Fighters based in the continental United States can deploy to combat zones on the other side of the planet within hours, being refueled multiple times in flight. The Air Force also operates an entire fleet dedicated solely to moving people and equipment around the world. The Air Mobility Command controls over 300 transport aircraft, including massive C-5 Galaxy and C-17 Globemaster cargo planes that can carry tanks, helicopters, and humanitarian supplies to anywhere they're needed. During natural disasters, these aircraft often arrive before any other nation's relief efforts, delivering critical supplies and personnel. When disasters strike, American aircraft are often the first to arrive, not because of politics, but because the capability exists. Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities represent another dimension where the U.S. Air Force stands alone. They operate satellites, reconnaissance aircraft, and sophisticated drone fleets that provide continuous monitoring of potential threats worldwide. High-altitude drones, reconnaissance aircraft, and satellites provide persistent global awareness. The battlefield is observed continuously, not episodically. Aircraft like the RQ-4 Global Hawk can fly at altitudes above 60,000 feet for over 30 hours, surveilling enormous areas with radar and optical sensors that can identify vehicles from the edge of space. Cyber and space operations now define modern air power. The Air Force's cyber warfare and space capabilities add yet another layer to their dominance. They operate military satellites for communication, navigation, early warning, and intelligence gathering. The GPS system that billions of people use daily is maintained and operated by the Air Force. Protecting them is as critical as defending runways. These space-based assets are so integral to modern military operations that the Air Force created an entire command dedicated to space operations, which eventually became the new Space Force. Electronic warfare completes the picture. Electronic warfare deserves special attention. Modern air combat isn't just about missiles and guns, it's about controlling the electromagnetic spectrum. Control the electromagnetic spectrum and you control perception itself. Jamming, deception, and disruption allow American forces to operate while adversaries remain confused or blind. The Air Force operates specialized aircraft like the EC-130H Compass Call that can jam enemy communications and radar systems, effectively blinding adversaries. When combined with stealth aircraft and precision weapons, this creates a scenario where enemy forces often don't even know they're under attack until weapons are already impacting their targets. Let's talk about weapons technology. Weapons technology reinforces restraint as much as power. Precision-guided munitions allow targets to be struck with minimal collateral damage. Accuracy replaces brute force. Power becomes selective, not indiscriminate. The Air Force has pioneered precision-guided munitions that have revolutionized warfare. GPS-guided Joint Direct Attack Munitions, or GDAMs, transform ordinary bombs into precision weapons accurate within meters. This means the Air Force can strike specific buildings, vehicles, or infrastructure while minimizing collateral damage. They've developed weapons like the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, a 30,000-pound bomb designed to destroy deeply buried bunkers that conventional weapons can't touch. Air-to-air missiles showcase similar technological advantages. The AIM-120 AMRAAM and AIM-9X Sidewinder combine active radar guidance, infrared tracking, and incredible maneuverability. Modern American air-to-air missiles can track and destroy targets at ranges exceeding 100 miles, often before enemy pilots even know they're being engaged. The research and development budget tells its own story. The Air Force invests billions annually in next-generation technologies. They're developing hypersonic weapons that can strike targets at speeds exceeding 5 times the speed of sound. They're working on directed energy weapons, essentially laser systems that can destroy drones and missiles. They're exploring artificial intelligence integration that could eventually lead to autonomous combat aircraft working alongside human pilots. Here's where things get truly revolutionary. The Air Force isn't just building better fighter jets. They're fundamentally reimagining what air combat means through something called Collaborative Combat Aircraft, or CCA for short. Think of CCA as the ultimate wingman, except this wingman is an autonomous jet-powered drone that costs a fraction of what a traditional fighter costs, while still packing serious combat punch. The concept is brilliantly simple. Pair expensive, crude 5th and 6th generation fighters with affordable semi-autonomous aircraft that can take on the riskiest missions without putting pilots in harm's way. In August 2025, the Air Force achieved something remarkable. The YFQ-42A, developed with General Atomics, took flight less than 2 years after the program launched. This wasn't some small prototype. This was a full-sized, jet-powered combat aircraft designed to fly alongside F-35s and the upcoming next-generation air dominance fighter. Then, just 2 months later, Anduril's competing YFQ-44A Fury prototype followed suit, giving the Air Force 2 operational prototypes to evaluate and refine. What makes CCA transformative isn't just the technology, it's the economics of air power. Each CCA costs roughly $30 million, compared to hundreds of millions for crewed fighters. This means a single F-35 or NGAD fighter could operate with multiple autonomous teammates, dramatically multiplying combat effectiveness without proportionally increasing costs. Imagine sending in these unmanned aircraft first to suppress air defenses, gather intelligence, or draw out enemy fighters, all while keeping human pilots safely positioned to strike decisively. The Air Force plans to field between 100 and 150 Increment 1 CCAs initially, with potential expansion into the thousands. They're not treating these as experimental toys. CCAs are undergoing serious operational testing at Nellis Air Force Base, developing real-world tactics that will define how America fights future air wars. This represents nothing less than affordable mass return to American air power. All of this rests on people: maintainers, analysts, engineers, cyber operators, planners. Every mission reflects thousands of decisions made far from the cockpit. The Air Force isn't aircraft, it's an ecosystem. Maintenance and readiness represent another crucial advantage. The Air Force maintains readiness rates that allow them to surge operations rapidly when needed. They have established supply chains, spare parts inventories, and maintenance procedures refined over decades. When crisis erupts, the Air Force can quickly ramp up operational tempo in ways that would overwhelm less capable organizations. International partnerships multiply American air power even further. The Air Force regularly trains with allied nations, sharing tactics and interoperability standards. NATO allies often fly American-made aircraft and use compatible communication systems, meaning coalition operations can integrate seamlessly. This diplomatic dimension of air power creates force multiplication effects, where allied air forces effectively extend American capabilities. The human element cannot be overstated. Beyond pilots, the Air Force employs hundreds of thousands of personnel in supporting roles. Maintainers keep aircraft flying, intelligence analysts process reconnaissance data, cyber specialists protect networks, air traffic controllers manage complex airspace, logistics specialists ensure supplies reach where they're needed. This entire ecosystem of skilled professionals working together creates an organization that's far more than just the sum of its aircraft. The Air Force is the obvious top dog. There isn't a close second. That dominance isn't excitement, it's a fact, shaped by decades of investment, experience gained in conflict, and a commitment to maintaining a technological edge. While other nations build impressive aircraft, the U.S. Air Force maintains a system of systems that no other nation can match, and that fundamental fact shapes global politics whether we like it or not. So, when we say the United States Air Force owns the sky, we're talking about an organization that has spent over 72 years building unmatched capabilities across every dimension of air warfare. Superior technology, superior training, superior logistics, superior experience, and superior reach. It's not one thing that makes them dominant, it's everything working together in concert. The next time you see a jet contrail crossing the sky, remember, if it's American, it's likely part of the most powerful air force ever created. That's not nationalistic rhetoric, that's just the reality of 77 years of focused investment, innovation, and unwavering commitment to maintaining air superiority. One good fact remains: the United States Air Force doesn't just own the sky, they've become inseparable from it. So why does the United States Air Force stand alone? Because it combines scale with precision, innovation with discipline, and power with control. It adapts faster than rivals, integrates better than competitors, and sustains operations no one else can match. The next time you look up and see an empty sky, remember, invisibility isn't absence, it's mastery. The United States Air Force doesn't just fly through the sky, it owns it. And by doing so, it quietly shapes the world below. The sky isn't empty, and neither is history. Subscribe for the next fact that changes how you see the world.